Okay, so on to stopping the foreclosure process or sale with a HAMP modification. Once the homeowner has accepted a trial period plan, the foreclosure process must stop, and that's what's called a restriction on dual tracking. If the foreclosure sale date was set, the sale date must be put on hold if the application was submitted at least 7 days prior to the sale, given enough time for the servicer to evaluate the application. A servicer can refer a loan to foreclosure or conduct the foreclosure sale if the borrower was evaluated for HAMP and determined to be ineligible, or the borrower was on a trial period plan and did not make the payments on time, or the servicer has resolved an escalated case. For example, if a borrower appeals and the appeal was denied and there's no further appeal from that point. Pay special attention to the trial period. The trial period should last at least 3 months, but it can be extended, especially FHA HAMP loans. Sometimes they have to be approved after the trial period by FHA, and so there can be some delays associated with that. The best advice is to tell the client to continue paying the exact amount they're paying under the trial until they receive their permanent modification paperwork. The servicer will continue to report to credit agencies. Typically they're going to continue to report that it's unpaid because they are receiving payments that are less than what is technically owed until the loan is permanently modified. Pay attention to the fact that a borrower may have to resubmit documents. It's rare, but it does happen, especially if the borrower's circumstances change. It's very important to submit any documents requested by the servicer. You certainly don't want your client to miss out on an opportunity for a modification simply because they didn't send in some paperwork. There is a requirement, however, that the servicer send at least 2 written requests for the documents prior to terminating the modification or something like that. You always want to document everything. You want to document who you spoke to at the servicer, what documents were sent and to whom, by what method, was it fax or email. Keep proof of receipt if that's available, and then keep copies of all documents submitted. It's always a good practice to keep the most recent package of documents together in one stack, with a binder clip or something like that. So, homeowner incentives under HAMP. Homeowners will receive an incentive payment that will be applied towards reducing the principal balance of their mortgage. If the homeowner is current on the modified mortgage, they will receive $1,000 each year for up to 5 years, basically to pay down principal. So just a review question, which of the following homeowners would not qualify for a modification or HAMP? A homeowner who is in foreclosure, B, a homeowner who is in bankruptcy, C, a homeowner who is in litigation, or D, they would all qualify. The answer, of course, is D, they would all qualify. Okay. Here's another review question. When can a servicer start or complete the foreclosure process under HAMP? A, before the homeowner is evaluated for HAMP. B, the borrower failed to make the trial period payments on time. C, the borrower did not provide the documents requested after at least 2 written requests. The answer is D, B and C only. Either the borrower didn't make the trial period payments on time or failed to submit documentation to the lender after request. If a borrower requests a trial period plan payment that is greater than what is required, he or she may be ineligible for a permanent modification. True or false? It really depends. Okay, so the question is, if a borrower makes a trial period plan payment that's greater than what is required, they may be ineligible. So oftentimes what happens is the borrower, let's say the amount is $730.17, and they decide to send $735. Well, the problem is a lot of times the servicers have their systems coded where it's only going to accept a payment if it's in that exact amount, or it'll credit just that exact amount of the trial period payment. So the best advice is to tell the clients to submit payments that are exactly mirroring the amounts that are in the trial period plan. But if they do send at least as much as what's owed on the trial period plan, of course, if there is a problem, I think the borrower would have an argument that the servicer has to still accept the agreement and give them a permanent modification. If the borrower fails to make a trial period plan payment on time and is not offered a permanent modification, he or she will be able to get a refund of the trial period plan payments. Of course, that's false. If they miss a payment, that's going to be considered a second default, basically, and the servicer is going to continue with the foreclosure. Okay, now we're going to talk about junior mortgages, so second liens. The HAMP second lien program, also known as 2MP. There have been recent enhancements, especially for incentives to second lien servicers in terms of trying to get them to do more second lien modifications. 2MP is part of HAMP, so it's under the same umbrella as the HAMP first lien program. You cannot get a modification on a second lien mortgage unless you get a modification on the first lien. So basically 2MP is only available if you are also getting a modification on a first lien. Second lien basically means a mortgage that is in second position or would have been but for a tax lien, mechanics lien, etc. A second mortgage with no interest and no payments due is not eligible. A second mortgage with a small balance or less than $5,000 is not eligible. There's no need to submit additional documentation to qualify for 2MP. The servicer can rely on what was submitted for the modification of the first mortgage. The mortgage may be current or delinquent, and a trial period is required if the homeowner is delinquent. There are two alternatives in the 2MP program. One is modification. Two, receiving payment for release of the lien, or also called extinguishment. So under 2MP, there will be a capitalization of accrued interest and advances to third parties. The interest rate can be reduced to 1% for amortizing loans and 2% for interest-only loans. After 5 years, the interest rate will reset to match the interest on the modified first lien mortgage. Then the term of the loan is also extended to match the term on the modified first mortgage. And then there can be a forbearance of principal in the same proportion as on the first mortgage. So basically, a larger balloon payment. Now, moving on to the HAMP unemployment program. It requires a minimum of 12 months of forbearance, and it reduces mortgage payments to 31% of gross monthly income. Servicers do have discretion to suspend full payment, and there is no maximum forbearance period. It just has to be at least 12 months. However, there is a cap of 12 months PITI payments that can be included in that. Homeowners must meet HAMP eligibility requirements that we discussed previously. They no longer have to wait until the homeowner misses 3 mortgage payments. Borrowers who receive unemployment benefits or whose benefits have ended within the last 6 months but are still unemployed can qualify. And then homeowners who are in a trial or permanent HAMP modification are also eligible. So let's say you have a borrower in a trial modification and they lose their job, apply for unemployment benefits. They can apply for this unemployment program. So who is eligible under HAMP UP? It's a homeowner who's unemployed and requests assistance on their primary residence only. The homeowner becomes unemployed while in a trial mod or permanent mod. The homeowner is unemployed and previously denied and is requesting reconsideration, and may be used with other UP programs like HHF or EHLP. A homeowner in a permanent HAMP modification who's current and becomes employed is not eligible. A homeowner who's defaulted on a trial modification is not eligible. If they're more than 12 months delinquent, it's not going to be possible. And let's say the request is made less than 7 days before the sale, they also are not eligible for HAMP UP. Causes for termination under HAMP UP: the terms of the forbearance plan are not honored. For instance, if the borrower is required to make reduced payments, let's say they just stop making payments or make reduced payments than what was agreed, then it can be terminated. Or the homeowner stops looking for work, they abandon the home, or the dollar amount of the arrearage becomes more than 12 months. Now we're going to move on to HAFA, H-A-F-A, which is the Home Affordable Foreclosure Alternatives Program, which basically provides financial incentives for servicers to pursue liquidation options like a short sale or a deed in lieu to allow the borrower to have sort of a graceful exit, leaving the home without a substantial deficiency judgment against them. So a short sale has to be approved. They have 4 months to sell the property under that program, but that time may be extended by the servicer. And then the net sale proceeds are established by investor guidelines. Any deficiency judgment is supposed to be waived, and then there is a possible $3,000 relocation incentive, and the foreclosure must be suspended while that is being pursued. And then we've got a deed in lieu program like we discussed in the other liquidation options. So the borrower's got to make a good faith effort to list and market the property before a deed in lieu of foreclosure will be accepted. There can't be any subordinate liens like tax liens or mechanics liens, and the borrower typically has to leave the property by a particular date. People talk about this having a less negative effect on your credit score, but truth be told, it's not going to be that much different. There's still going to be a very negative financial impact, even in a deed in lieu type of situation. Then it's possible to get a $3,000 relocation incentive, or cash for keys like we discussed previously. This is set to expire December 31st, 2016. So now let's go to the Home Affordable Refinance Program, or HARP 2.0. So this is a homeowner who's the owner-occupant of a 1 to 4 unit property. The loan must be owned or securitized by Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac, and the homeowner must be current on his or her mortgage, and current means they've not been more than 30 days late in the past 12 months. HARP 2.0 only applies to first lien mortgages. It replaces adjustable rate mortgages, fixed rate mortgages, or interest rate mortgages, and mortgages with balloon payments. There's no loan-to-value cap in order to qualify, meaning a home can basically be severely underwater any house that's severely underwater can possibly qualify. So there were lots of markets where homes were 40% under their market value compared to what was owed on the property. They would still qualify. Just as an example, if the fair market value of a home is $200,000 and the homeowner owes $350,000, they could still qualify. So HARP basically provides a pathway to a new fixed rate mortgage at either a 15 or 30-year term. The interest rate on the loan is based on the market rate in effect at the time of the refinance. And it is a temporary program that is supposed to end in December 2015, but it is one of those programs that's been consistently extended, so it's not real clear when it will end. There are no prepayment penalties or balloon payments in a HARP refinance, no cash out, only transaction costs like the cost of an appraisal, a title report. Those are the only things that can be included in the refinanced amount. Where to look for the rules? You're going to want to look to the HAMP handbook and the supplemental directives. You can find those at www.hmpadmin.com. I'd recommend subscribing to email updates as well, so that if there are any new regulations or changes that come out, you can sign up for a webinar and typically receive free training. The MHA Outreach and Borrower Intake Project basically was a short-term initiative to reach out to identify borrowers in default and assist borrowers to complete their packages. So it's these sort of events where they travel around different cities and have representatives there that help people apply for modifications. Packages are then sent through the Hope Loan Port program to the different servicers. That was set to expire September 30th, 2014. I'm not entirely sure if that's been extended, but just keep that in mind. It's possible that that project has actually ended. Maintaining home ownership. So keeping the home will be unrealistic for some clients, just given what their income is and what kind of debt they're carrying. Others may decide they don't want to keep the home for whatever reason. You want to be able to still advise them on the process and timelines of different options, and counseling may include a referral. For instance, if it appears that the only way this person is going to be able to keep the home is through a bankruptcy, it may be appropriate to refer them to a bankruptcy attorney. So let's go through HAMP Activity 3.3 on pages 32 and 33 together, just really quickly in each scenario. So if we go to the top there, the very first one, the servicer is, we're going to be checking the box here if the servicer can deny a HAMP based on the following reason. So as we discussed, a servicer does have to be a signatory to HAMP. So if they're not participating in HAMP, that would be an appropriate reason for them to disqualify a borrower from consideration. So go ahead and check that first box. Number two, the investor or holder of the loan is not participating. Again, if the owner investor is not participating, they have no contractual requirement to give a borrower a HAMP style modification. So go ahead and check that box. The borrower is in jail. You can put an X there. That's not an adequate reason for a denial. However, the borrower probably won't have very significant income, so that's another issue. But just keep that in mind. The borrower's back-end ratio is 65%. We're going to go ahead and check that box because it's greater than 55%. That is above the back-end ratio requirements of HAMP. But do be careful with some of those ratios that there are different styles of HAMP in terms of FHA HAMP, VA HAMP, where it may be possible that there's not that back-end ratio restriction. So you're going to want to even get as specific as the investor's specific style of HAMP. Alright, let's move on to the next one. The borrower's current front-end ratio is less than 31%. That's already affordable, right? At least according to the HAMP program, so we're going to check that box. If their front-end ratio is already less than 31%, they cannot qualify for HAMP. And that's their housing payment divided by their gross income. And we discussed previously what all goes into that calculation for the housing payment. Okay, let's say the borrower failed to send in documents requested by the servicer after the servicer sent a letter requesting such documents more than 30 days ago. Again, that's an adequate reason for denial if the borrower is not complying with document requests. So go ahead and check that box. The current unpaid principal balance on the loan is $900,000 and the borrower lives in a one-unit property. Remember, let's check that. Go ahead and check that box because remember that limit is $729,000 in a one-unit property. The borrower has a positive NPV result. Go ahead and put an X in that box. That's not a good reason for denial. It would be if there was a negative NPV result that the servicer could actually reject the borrower. The borrower made a trial period plan payment 41 days after it was due. That is an adequate reason for denial. Remember that any trial period payment has to be made within the month that it's due. Borrowers in an active bankruptcy, that is not an adequate reason for rejection under HAMP modification. However, they may want a discharge order prior to applying, just because some of those back-end ratio restrictions might count against them as long as that debt is showing up on their credit report. The borrower retired to Florida and her sister lives in the property. Go ahead and put an X there. HAMP Tier 2 is possible there. They may not qualify for HAMP Tier 1, but HAMP Tier 2 is possible in that situation. The loan has PMI, and the PMI company did not approve the HAMP modification. Go ahead and put an X there. That's not an adequate reason for a HAMP denial. A borrower is unemployed. That's not an adequate reason for denial. Remember, there are HAMP unemployment. There is a HAMP UP program specifically. The borrower is divorced. Go ahead and put an X there. That's not a disqualifier. The borrower's home is scheduled to be sold at auction in 4 days. That's not a disqualifier, so you can put an X there. But just remember that the servicer doesn't necessarily have to look at it if it's closer than 7 days from the sale date. The borrower was convicted of grand larceny 9 years ago. You actually need more information here. If you remember the Dodd-Frank certification, the specific crimes that it enumerates do have to be related to a mortgage or real estate transaction. So we can't answer that particular question. The borrower has a HAMP modification on her home and is seeking to modify the loan on her Arizona condo that she rents in the winter and vacations in the summer. That is an adequate reason for denial. Remember we have to remember the seasonal restriction on HAMP modifications. Okay, so if it's used as a seasonal home, it can't qualify for a HAMP modification. Under Tier 2, if it was strictly a rental and she wasn't using it for winter vacation, or she wasn't using it for her summer vacations, then it's possible she could get a HAMP Tier 2 modification. Last one here, the borrower applied for a HAMP Tier 2 modification after rejecting a Tier 1 modification because she didn't like the terms of the offer. Obviously, you don't get a choice in this situation, so if you reject the offer, that's going to be an adequate reason for the bank to deny you. That is, now I will say on the next page, you're going to want to go through this on your own. I'm going to go ahead and give you the answers in order, but you can review these on your own. So it goes true, false, true, false, 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 true, false, false, false. Okay? And that is the end of section 3.3, whether the client can apply for the HAMP program.